Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Three Steps Ahead podcast. Today it's myself, Martin Gibbs, and Simon Cossey. Hi, Simon.
Good morning, Martin. Good morning.
No Richard Miller with us today. Richard will be back in a future episode, but he is off yet again, rewilding parts of Britain. Um, so today's topic, Simon, what we wanted to do is a bit of a deep dive into something that we've touched on in at least one previous episode. And it's an
Yeah.
intriguing area for you, and one that resonates for me. And this is something called the zero moment of truth.
Zero Moment of Truth, developed in 2011 by a Google executive, and it was mapping the customer journey to an extent, but that moment of truth when a customer decides to buy a product from you. Love a stat, early stat in the podcast today. I'll read
Absolutely. This
that.
must be a record for getting your statistic in
Oh,
80% earlier than normal.
absolutely. Nearly 90% of consumers research a product or service before purchasing it. And in a sense, obviously, we talk a lot about professional
This is
services.
back in
And
2011, that statistic.
no, that was from a couple of years ago. I
Okay.
spotted that. Whether you're buying a fridge freezer or whatever you might be buying for your home, why should professional services shopping be
Yep.
any different?
Yep.
So yeah, it's an absolute fascinating point that there's lots and lots of airtime about it and lots of reading that can be done. Again, it comes down to actually just lifting a few of those parts and let's get it into practice.
So I think the way I first heard about zero moment of truth, and I think I actually included this in a conference presentation I did probably about 2012. But this goes back to, as you were talking about a fridge freezer, but if you're looking to buy a washing machine or a fridge freezer back in 2011, 2012, you'd Google it and you'd decide it's going to be whatever brand of machine that you wanted. You'd understand the features, and then Google could tell you where you could get it for the best price. So by the time you walked into Curry's on Saturday afternoon, you'd really already made your mind up. So the zero moment of truth had come right at the start of the buying process. Today, I think there's a tie-in between the zero moment of truth, your reputation, and your personal brand. In that, your reputation is what other people say about you. Your
Yep.
personal brand is what you say about yourself. And the zero moment of truth is where the two collide. It's where personal brand and reputation meet in the middle.
To quote something that we do like, it sounds like a virtual Venn diagram there,
Oh.
Martin. I think it's interesting as well. It's like working on the 1 in 10 principle. If you were doing a Google search back in
Yep,
2011, you'd have probably come up with 10 choices, five, six, seven things you
yep.
might well have looked at. Um, but that zero moment of truth that was applied then has significantly changed in today's environment. In 2026, it's zero moment of truth is a very different point than it was, say, 15 years ago. And that's because AI has superseded it.
Yep.
The research is not done by us necessarily. We do a single piece of research, perhaps by trying to ask AI the best question we possibly can. So we're now dealing with decisions that are delivered as a single answer. So your zero moment of truth won't be me going through and looking at five or six different websites and going, oh, I like that bit. I like that bit. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. It will be a single question and a single answer. So, you know,
A good example here is I have bought four pairs of a particular type of outdoor walking approach shoe called a Scarpa Vortex GTX. And I've bought four pairs of them so far, and I've worn all four out. The heel is falling off on my latest pair. So at the weekend, I was doing a bit of research because every time I go and look to buy another pair, I go around in a circle and it's these Scarpa Vortex shoes. They're the ones that fit my needs and what I want. They brought out a newer version that's 50 quid more. And ChatGPT chatted me through the whole thing, compared, contrasted, and basically concluded for the type of walking I do, and the fact that I bought four pairs of these shoes and been happy with them, its best suggestion was just buy another pair, and this is where you can get them cheapest.
yeah, I mean, it's coming down to this is something I know we've spoken about in the past is that digital nod, if you
Yep.
want to call it that, isn't it? This is now so important. And again, whether it's Scarpa shoes or a fridge freezer
Yeah.
in professional services, whether you're accountants, lawyers, surveyors, marketeers, whatever aspect of professional services you deliver, you're going to be looked up. It's no longer the search that is the key, albeit the search is still really important because something else is doing that
I think
perhaps
this
in the
is where we
back.
perhaps jump to number one on our list
Yeah,
of things we wanted to talk about. Number one is the focus with the zero moment of truth has shifted from Googling you to triangulating you. With the zero moment of truth, the decision as to whether somebody wants to work with you is often made before the meeting is even accepted. It's not a case of that they're checking you out before the meeting happens. They've made the decision whether they want to do business with you before they've even reached out to book the meeting. So you may never know about missed opportunities because your
yeah.
pipeline is self-filtering unless you get this triangulation right.
They're no longer deciding whether they need your help at that point. For professional services, they're deciding who they can trust. They'll
Yep.
have whittled it down, rightly or wrongly. The systems are there that are going to do that. So it's that whittled down, and clearly, professional services, whatever
Yep.
discipline you're in, is a very high trust. It's about people. All the bits about AI and all this, it's about building that individual personal approach, supporting that, not replacing it in any shape or form. If anything, it's putting greater emphasis on you being omnipresent.
What you might call the pattern match effect. This is where somebody's looking at your profile and is trying to work out whether you are somebody they can gel with, or somebody they want to work with, or somebody they want to be their advisor. So, proof of capability on LinkedIn, on your corporate website, is all key. Does this person look like somebody I can trust? Do they operate at my level? Do they talk the way that I talk? Your own zero moment of truth needs to signal authority, relevance, and a certain familiarity that they can identify with you.
Yeah, and that familiarity is going to come from either your you can demonstrate that you're well known for a particular role or
Yep.
niche or something like that.
Yep.
You might be visible locally. People are trying to find people to deal with locally, the kind of owner managed business size. If they go on and they see they've got a testimonial from, Dave Engineering Limited down the road because you did a good job for them and the
Yep.
MD's been online and quite happy to recommend you, that's a really powerful endorsement because immediately you
100%.
see they've taken time out to say that, and that can be mirrored again onto the company
The
website. So
testimonials are important.
really
I
important.
know I picked up a really nice corporate finance project probably about 10 years ago now that then became a really good client. We'd done a management buyout for a particular client, and there was an article that we had in I think it was the Coventry and Warwickshire In Business, the Chamber newsletter that just talked in overview terms what we'd done for this one client. And somebody rang me up and said, Martin, I've read this article. Can you come and have a chat with me? Because I'd like you to do for me what you did for this client. And
Yeah.
that then led on to the next bit. So proof of capability.
Yeah, I mean, we will talk about content. You can talk about blogs. You can do technical stuff, which I think is always useful, especially if
Yep.
that technical stuff is highlighting how an issue might well be solved. But when we talk about the content stuff and the blog stuff, it's got to be really personal. These are the things that work on giving a proper sense of you. And as you can tell, hopefully the listeners and the watchers of our podcast can see it's that authenticity.
So that leads on to the next point then. What are the red flags? What can immediately kill any chance you've got of getting this piece of business or making this connection? What are the silent red flags? So, common zero moment of truth killers: having an outdated or an inactive LinkedIn profile.
Outdated, inactive, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Not particularly descriptive, let's put it that
Yep.
way.
If it's not accessible, if you look at it and you look at somebody's headline and you still don't understand what they do,
It's meant to be a living document.
Another red flag is if there's a mismatch between the tone and the language and the look of somebody's personal profile, say on LinkedIn, if there's a mismatch between what they're saying about themselves and what's on their corporate website and the message that comes across, that is going to be a zero moment of truth killer.
Yeah, I mean the two have got to work in close harmony.
Another one is just an absence. I was going to say all the lights are on, but nobody's home. Quite often I look at somebody's LinkedIn profile and it's like, well, there's no posts. Or there's one post and it's sort of 3 years ago. Visible thinking and proof of capability that's up to date, both on LinkedIn and on your website.
Because LinkedIn can become a storybook of what you're doing in the flesh, let's call it that. So if you're out there networking and attending industry events, and
Yeah.
pressing the flesh, as we would have said, in terms of demonstrating capability, looking to expand your business, trying to pick up a bit of work, specific work here and there, then your LinkedIn profile really is your online record of that.
Yeah.
It's showing you personally. It shows where you've been, what you've been doing, who you've spoken with. Um, the two things, whilst again are very interchangeable, you should be doing many of the things that you perhaps write about or post or share or like or comment on other people's
Mm.
posts in real life.
My Instagram account, which is at the connected accountant, which has been somewhat inactive for the last 9 months because I'm no longer an accountant. But I am connected. But that Instagram feed was designed really to just be pulling together lots of interesting people I'd met, places I'd been, stuff that I'd done. And if anything, was now it's good to look back on as a bit of a scrapbook. But that was integrated with what I was putting onto LinkedIn as well. So there'd be more detail on LinkedIn and just the images really
Yep.
on Instagram. This comes back to another red flag, which is poor quality photos or poor quality branding. A bad photo, a bad headshot. I mean, okay, you and I are not necessarily George Clooney and Brad Pitt, although maybe we are Tom Holland and Dominic Sambrook in reverse.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we're sitting here talking about rocket science stuff in any shape or form. Just making sure I've joked with one or two people that you go out or you've spotted on
Yeah.
a list of attendees at a networking event, and the photo really doesn't bear any resemblance. So, and surprisingly, the number of people who don't use the banner effectively, but they're just really, really simple things to
And little
fix.
things
But
like, as well, you talk about the banner photograph. The file name for the banner photograph has to be something relevant that's got your name in and maybe your company's
yeah,
name in, not just the generic name. And the file name of your profile image needs to have your name in it, rather than being, 12345.jpg or something.
I think, Martin, I think when it comes to this, look, if you've got what is an outdated profile or an incomplete profile,
Yep.
because if you're incomplete there, people might make an assumption that you're incomplete in other
And I think
places.
the conclusion on that, an empty or outdated profile doesn't say nothing. It actually says something negative. The next angle we wanted to look at was moving from having a passive profile to actually giving an active signal. If you treat LinkedIn as your CV,
I think very simply, there's the three elements of it.
yep,
Very simply, cut to the chase, isn't it? Your profile, yes, it's going to feel a little CV like because they're built that way. But what you can do throughout is a credibility profile,
yep,
not a CV. The content that you create, and it doesn't have to be every day or every week necessarily, is demonstrating to people your relevance.
yep,
You're producing something that shows that you're up with the latest thinking. And I think as well, people obviously get a bit siloed thinking, I've written content for a LinkedIn blog. You need to make sure that stuff's hitting your website. And then you need to make sure that people are sharing that content, with clients and
yep.
potentials. But we need
So
to make sure that it's hitting the right
So
desk.
just focusing it back on this zero moment of truth, then your profile is your credibility.
Yep.
The content that's in there is the proof of your relevance, and the engagement that you get with people, comments and likes and reshares, that is the proof of your relevance. Get all of that right, and you're going to be hitting the sweet spot of this zero moment of truth.
Exactly. And we're using LinkedIn as an example here.
Yep.
But again, I would say that you need to be doing those things in the flesh. If you're doing those things in every interaction, touch point that you have with either existing clients or potential clients, it'll come together.
You talked about credibility a few minutes ago. So,
Yeah.
zero moment of truth, the concept of borrowed credibility, which is something that's very powerful and it's easy to overlook. People will judge you by the people you're seen with, the people who comment on your posts, and the comments that you make on other people's posts, who you're seen in posts with, and who you collaborate with.
Both of us have been using Coventry and Warwickshire First as an example.
Yeah.
That's a very good platform. Arguably the number one platform across Coventry and Warwickshire for professionals to network and build relationships and
Yeah.
ultimately build referral relationships.
The network to be in for professionals that count.
Absolutely. And being seen and visible amongst that is where you deepen those relationships, those no agenda coffees that you have afterwards, absolutely helps build that referral. Also, you're in a like-minded group of people that also deal with the type of clients that you probably want to be acting for,
Yeah.
which is important. Comments, you need to take an interest in perhaps a particular field.
Let's keep it at the hockey level.
Exactly. There you go. So clearly, if you talk about sport, obviously I'm quite passionate about that, as you can see from behind. And another hockey post will be on its way shortly, definitely. But where you try and link something that you do outside of work, something I'm working on at the moment is looking at the lessons that I can translate from hockey
Oh, I
and
like
what do they mean in the business world.
that.
So it's real life things that you do on a Saturday afternoon that you go, well, actually, I can translate that.
Just to wrap up then the zero moment of truth and this concept of borrowed credibility, having guests on your podcast and basking in their limelight is apparently a great way of borrowing credibility. We are having a special guest on the next episode of the podcast, which in fact is going to be recorded, I think, next week, but we will see. Maybe just sort of coming towards a bit of a conclusion then. Zero moment of truth and a 60-second audit test. If I Googled you right now, Simon, what would I be able to glean about you in 60 seconds? What shows up first? Does it look current? Does it position you clearly? And would, as a result, I feel comfortable buying from you? I'm sure I would with you, Simon. In fact,
Well, clearly, I'd like to say the answers would be yes to all of those. But even however active and visible you might be, you come back and you've got me thinking, oh, perhaps I need to do that exercise again on myself. And it's kind of almost an iteration each month because the market moves and perceptions move. It's worth doing. I think as long as you're getting some core bits
yeah.
correct. So that credibility piece, because that generally is a historic bit, keep that up to date. Activity, yeah, everyone has a few weeks when they're not particularly, Easter's not a particularly active time. People sort of do put their phones
It's the end
down
of
and
the
the
hockey
computers
season.
down for a bit. The hockey season's come to an end now. So, well, before we get to Summer League anyway, I definitely feel that you need to be always thinking about how you position yourself. And that again comes back to this is not just a LinkedIn lesson. We used to call it the elevator pitch. I'd go to the others. You've got 60 seconds in a room meeting a client. What would your key points you'd want to get across?
When you talk to people and you say, right, what is your elevator pitch? If they're within your own
Yep.
organization and they freeze.
And again, that's a perfect opportunity to demonstrate that elevator pitch because people think I've got to try and do everything in 60 seconds. And that's not the case.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a very thoughtful one line that will demonstrate your relevance to that person in the room with you.
And if you get too
Yeah.
salesy with that elevator pitch, it's going to be just a straight turn off.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
need to think through, when somebody says, what do you do? Where are you from? And you need to
It's
think it through from the zero moment of truth angle. What are you going to say? How are you going to pitch it? And how is that going to help you keep 3 steps ahead?
indeed. And perhaps, Martin, almost the most telling moment is perhaps not what you say, it's if you pause before you say anything, because that's a signal to say, what am I going to say to that person? Whereas you should be in a place where you've probably got, 3 or 4 lines that you've developed over some time in the bank, so to speak, that you go, oh yeah, it's funny you should mention that. This is what we've been doing with our clients, and this is how we look to help people through this, and this. Just constructing something along those lines. I wouldn't try and cram everything in. Before you go to a meeting, bit of meeting prep here. If I get asked what I do, what am I going to say? You'll know who you're going to see. You know what they're going to do. Can you make something from your bank relevant to them in that 60 seconds?
And is there anything that you've researched about them that can then be a
Yeah,
conversation opener? Yeah.
absolutely.
I always used to find things like a watch. I think personally, watches say a lot about people. This is a very, very large Garmin Phoenix 7. But you look at somebody's watch, they've got a watch like this on. They got their steps today. Are they a runner? Are they a walker? Are they a cyclist? You can quite quickly work out some common ground with somebody just by what they've got on their wrist. Watches tend to fall into the category of if you know what they are, you know what they are, and only about 1% of people are remotely interested. I like to look for angles on things and look for
Yeah.
conversation starters.
And if you're looking to go to a client, you probably look them up on the website. You're probably going to look them up on LinkedIn. You're going to do all the things that we've been talking about that you need to make sure that your outward facing profile is hitting the buttons. We need to ensure that we're not best in class, but certainly top of the pack.
So just to conclude it then, to go back to what we said really right back at the start, zero moment of truth, professional reputation, and personal brand.
Yeah.
Reputation is what people say about you. Their personal brand is what you say about yourself. And the zero moment of truth is where the two meet. But if you only start thinking about your profile at the point when you want something, then you're already behind the curve. So to hit that zero moment of truth, you need to make sure that you've got there first, that you've triangulated back and made sure that what is online is pitching you in the right way.
Absolutely. You're too late to the party, aren't you? And we're all guilty of that or have been guilty over our time of, oh, I must do that. Yeah, that's why you've just got to, invest a little bit of time, little small bits of time. Don't feel as bad as having to invest a big bit of time when you need to update something because.
If somebody listening or watching this wants some help just giving a quick overview of their LinkedIn profile, for example, Simon will very quickly give you a quick 1 minute, 2 minute audit, give you some pointers. There's an amazing number of things that you can pick up and glean about somebody, or things that you can change quite quickly. They're going to have a dramatic impact on the way that you are perceived and the way that you come across.
But also about how that can improve your reach, which is
Yeah.
ultimately
Yeah.
what you want to do.
So for that zero moment of truth, you only get one opportunity to make a first impression. So make sure
Yep.
you're on it to
It's
make
as good
sure
as it
you're.
can be. Yeah.
Okay, well, with that then, Simon, thank you very much.
I've got one thing that I could have
Oh, go on
said
then.
actually.
Yep, yep, yep.
Woody Allen is often credited with saying 80% of success is showing up.
My favorite Woody Allen quote comes from, I'm trying to think which one it is now. It's him and Sally Field, and she's driving a Volkswagen Beetle, and she's driving him around New York, I think it is, and they pull up at the curb, and she's parked pretty badly, and he gets out of the car and says, "It's all right, we can walk to the curb from here." That's one of my favorite Woody Allen quotes. We will be back with another episode in a few weeks. I've been hinting at a guest coming up next time, but Simon, thank you very much.
Martin, thank you.